welcome to an exciting episode of BioLogic Science News. Today, I bring you an insightful discovery from researchers at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Professor Ali Mizarez and his associates looked at the beak of the jumbo squid, analyzing its structural pattern and chemical composition and applying what they learned to the science of prosthetics. So, understand that the majority of prosthetics are far from perfect. Implanted prosthetics don't integrate very well into the patient's tissue, and they can be a site for infection and inflammation. Prosthetics like hip replacements or substitutes for knee cartilage, they can degrade and they suffer performance problems over time. They require replacement every 10 to 15 years. The hard plastics and metals of the prosthetics can grind and scrape against bone, and they can easily tear or pull at the softer tissues in the body. The material used in cartilage replacements is soft and rubbery, designed to absorb the kinetic energy that travels up and down your legs as you engage in physical activity. And it's just supposed to be like regular cartilage in that respect. The problem is that this soft, rubbery material is vulnerable to degradation, falling apart after years of perpetual use. These implants can also slip out of place, which won't just make them non-functional, it can block blood vessels, impair movement, and even cause pain. Prosthetics suffer from this fundamental problem, that the very materials that compose the prosthetic can't integrate optimally into the soft biological tissue surrounding them. Dr. Mizarez and his associates believe that they've identified a solution to this problem in the beak of the jumbo squid, Prosthetics gigas. On a molecular level, the beak of the jumbo squid is composed of two types of proteins, or two general classes of proteins. One is like a fibrous protein, and it builds a structural framework, like a three-dimensional shape, with tiny thin strands that link together. The other group are proteins that compose a liquid goo, which acts like a cement. The fibrous proteins are like scaffolding, or the metal rods that we put into concrete, They interconnect in the millions to form this massive three-dimensional shape, which in this case is the squid beak. And so the protein-rich, liquidy goop flows through the three-dimensional shape created by these chains and links all stitched together. When it's filled the three-dimensional volume, the protein goop kind of solidifies like a superglue, and it forms a stiff but flexible tissue. Here's the key detail. The arrangement and density of the fibrous proteins in a given area influences the density of the liquid protein goop that can settle there. When the goop dries and solidifies, the stiffness of the tissue depends on the concentration of the protein liquid itself. The squid is a soft-bodied organism. It has no bones, no armor plates, and no scales. The hardest part of its body is its beak, which it uses like a pair of giant fangs to pick and rip at prey. At the base of the beak, the concentration of the protein liquid is pretty low, and so when it matures and solidifies, it's still relatively soft. It's about as soft as the rest of the tissue surrounding the squid's mouth and head and, the rest of its body. But at the very tip of its beak, the protein liquid is highly concentrated. And so the mature tissue is really strong and it's really rigid. It's super stiff to the point of being hard like chitin or a shell. The density of the entire beak works along a gradient, where the base is the softest tissue, and gradually going up from the base, the tissue gets a little firmer, a little stiffer. The liquid goop was a little more concentrated, and so when it dried, it's just more and more stiff, until you get to the tip of the beak, and that's where you find the hardest tissue, the densest tissue. And that's ideal for the squid because that's what makes it like a tooth for them to pick and chip at food. From their paper published in the journal Nature Chemical Biology, Dr. Mizarez and his team believe that they can use this structural pattern to design more effective implants. They argue that by mimicking the structural patterns of the squid beak, they can create prosthetics with density gradients that will allow them to be integrated much better, much deeper, and more interconnected with the tissue than traditional prosthetics. The goal is to get natural biopolymers and synthesize squid proteins, and use these to create implants that are soft at places of contact with soft tissue, but stiff where necessary to provide the requisite, functional qualities, what you need the implant for. The medical possibilities of a technology like this are almost limitless. Imagine a cartilage replacement that can be fully integrated into the soft connective tissue of the knee or ankle. They would be more durable with almost no risk of slippage. Imagine a burn cast that offered a degree of flexibility at the joints. It would be more comfortable, and it would be more form-fitting than a traditional cast. Imagine a hard metal technology like a hearing aid or a blood sugar detector incorporated into a soft tissue implant that can be seamlessly integrated into the patient's body. This technology would reduce friction between the implants and the soft tissue, and that in turn would reduce inflammation and minimize the risk of infection. All considered, this could be an extremely valuable technology that would be a big advance in the field of medicine. The great thing about technology like this is that it would have applications way beyond medicine. It could be applied to cosmetic surgery and body modification, and it could even go beyond healthcare to stuff like biometric security and in user interfaces for computers and vehicles. What else do you think could benefit from this kind of soft tissue implant technology? How do you think this will affect the healthcare industry? And where else do you think that this technology could be applied?